Hello and welcome to Forgotten Clubs at Wrexham, where today we're going to be talking about where the first Welsh Cup Final was held. The first Welsh Cup Final was contested by Wrexham and Druids in 1878, and it features in my Origin of the Druids book. So we know it was played at Acton Park, but where in the park? It was due to play at the racecourse, but the racecourse was unavailable, so Sir Robert Cunliffe offered a section of Acton Park. It was just a roped off section of pitch really, so obviously there's no sort of records kept on that. So we have to sort of look at the clues that are held in sort of the newspaper archives and the old sort of ordnance survey maps. So we know that in 1876 there was an athletics event held here, so there's precedent of holding events in the park. It says that there was a good stone wall around the pitch, it was enclosed, it was fenced off, so people couldn't gain access. So when you look at historical research, the first thing you have to do is sort of look at how it would have been at the time rather than as it is now. So behind me you can see that there's a section of wall, and it's quite enclosed. Again, a section of wall goes behind me as well. Herbert Jennings Avenue now cuts across the wall, but the wall continues right the way down along there. So in the adverts for the game in 1878, there's one advert and it says access will be gained via the Rusnesney Lodge. So that gives us a clue that it's at the Rusnesney side of the park. On the old Ordnance Survey maps, this building behind me is the only lodge in the Rusnesney area, and on the roof it has 1876 on there, so we know that this building existed during the time of the Welsh Cup Final. So looking at it, this is the Rusnesney Lodge where access was gained. Here is a perimeter wall, and here is a really old entrance set of gate posts. So what looks like happened is, as we see there on the gate, it's got the lodge as well. So this building here was the lodge, and entrance was gained via these posts behind me. So people would have come down this way really. So they would have come through here after paying their entrance fee, which was 6p. I don't know what that is in modern money. And then this, on the Ordnance Survey maps where I'm walking now, is marked as a footpath. So they would have paid their money to come in, come through the gate posts for the lodge, and then come down this footpath here. So the 1878 Welsh Cup was the first Welsh Cup Final, so it was contested between Wrexham and Druids. So the game was 0-0 for up until the 90th minute, until James Davis forced, well, he was credited with the goal. No one actually knows the goal. It was a bit of a melee really. They just forced the ball in, and then James Davis is credited as being the goal scorer in the first ever Welsh Cup Final. So we're following the footpath now into the park, and as we see here behind me now, it sort of opens out into a bigger area. Obviously, when you look at historical research, none of these houses behind me would have existed at the time. It would have just been a field right the way across, right the way to the main road again. Herbert Jennings Avenue didn't exist. So it would have opened out into the park. On the old maps, these trees are still here, so we know it obviously could have been where the trees are. But obviously just beyond these really old trees, we have a sort of a grassy area behind me, which leads out to here. So the first Welsh Cup Final would have been played around here. Now, we don't know the orientation of the pitch. We don't know if it ran this way, right the way down the road that way. We don't know. Obviously, the football romantic in me would like to think that it ran to this area behind me, just because if it did, it would still overlap the football pitches, which are still there now. Which obviously it'd be nice to think that after 150 odd years, or whatever it is, that football is still sort of played, at least on part of the original site of the Welsh Cup Final. But yeah, the section I'm on now, it's surrounded by trees, it's got a wall enclosing it, and it's relatively flat. Not that it mattered back then. There's many reports of sloping pitches and that sort of thing. It wasn't a prerequisite for a pitch to be flat really. It was just a wide open sort of space that was big enough to sort of contain a football pitch, and then obviously the 1,500 sort of spectators that were present for the game. After the Welsh Cup Finals played in 1878, a couple of months later, an article appears in one of the local newspapers where they sort of talk about the Acton Park site, and they say that it's, you know, it's big, it's enclosed, it's got a perimeter wall. It also says it's got good access for the railway, which is slightly confusing because obviously, you know, the nearest station be even then be Wrexham General, Wrexham or Wrexham Exchange even, but again it's still quite a walk really to get here. So there are some other sites which have been proposed for the final, one being the Acton Park school, which I've seen, but that doesn't really make any sense really, because there's already a lodge in that area, so it doesn't really make any sense to access the park via Rusnesty Lodge and then walk half a mile uphill to access the Acton Park site when you could have access from the lodge that's already up there really. So yeah, going by all the sort of evidence available to us, then it's obviously the Rusnesty Lodge site, which then brings us out in this area by here. So thanks for watching. Again, if you're interested, it's in Origin of the Druids, which covers the history of Druids Football Club, but there's also Forgotten Clubs of Wrexham, which is also available. Both books available on Amazon. Thanks for watching.